Welcome back to Small Town Gamers Podcast, where we talk about gaming and more. I'm your host, Carbon107, joined with my co-host, Dr. Gnome.
Hello.
Hello. Oh my, we promised we wouldn't do that
I know.
every time,
Every
every
time.
single time.
What is going on, gamers?
Yeah, we're back with another edition of our wonderful weekly podcast, and we've got a very good show for you guys today. Jam-packed with a lot of different stuff that we haven't really talked about much. And actually, we're going to do a little different note this time. Instead of starting out with gaming news, we're actually going to talk about the world of entertainment, lined up with our very special feature of Captain America Civil War that just released this last weekend. And oh my God, I'm going to say for me, it was one of my most favorite movie experiences I've ever been to.
Awesome. Why?
Okay, so I'm a huge comic book nerd. I didn't read the Civil War comic book series. I missed that one. But as for a comic book nerd, I mean, I grew up with them as a kid. I read all the Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, all this stuff. Huge Marvel nerd. I didn't really get into DC. So for me, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is like one of my favorite of all time. So seeing them on the screen anytime a Marvel movie comes out, I'm excited. But this one really held a special place in my heart because it's like a small Avengers movie, except it didn't have the whole high stakes world ending. This one actually was really small, down to earth, hero against hero. And without any kind of spoilers, the way that they did everything, the heroes that they put on screen was honestly done the best I've seen in the Marvel universe. When I first saw it, I went home thinking, okay, this one wasn't quite as good as the original Avengers, and maybe it wasn't quite as good as the original Captain America, Winter Soldier. But as I thought about it more and more, and I actually want to go see it again because I'm pretty sure if I see it again, I will solidify this. But I honestly think this is the best movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe yet because it was so down to earth. Not to mention, you also get to see the very first ever Black Panther on screen.
Yeah,
And oh, they did amazing with him, inside and outside the costume. And we finally got what I think is the perfect Spider-Man ever done on screen. And just with those two right there, it's worth seeing it. But not to mention, the other one that stole the screen was Ant-Man. Seeing Paul Rudd actually interact with the Avengers more than just the Falcon this time was, I think he fit perfectly. He was like a glove that was missing, and whenever he was on screen, it just fit. And I think that the next Avengers movie, I guess it's supposed to be Infinity War or whatever they're going to name it, and we get to all these heroes together on screen this time, hopefully on the same side, it's going to be epic beyond words.
So I just want to put out there that there could be, so we're going to try not to spoil anything, but there could possibly be spoilers within the podcast. You did a really good job of not spoiling anything there, but my experience with the Marvel Cinematic Universe is that I've seen both of the Avengers. I saw number 1, I saw number 2, and then I saw some of the like a Thor 1, and I saw some of the original Captain America. But then as they went into like Iron Man 3 and Thor 2, I don't think they've had a Thor 2 yet, have they?
Yeah, they had Thor Dark
World. They have. Okay, so I haven't watched all of those. I haven't watched Captain America Winter Soldier. Like there's several of them that I haven't watched because I felt that what I wanted to see was the Avengers, and I want to see all these heroes coming together. And it's like each one of them had their own separate story. So with this movie, I felt it was awesome to see more than just focus on Captain America. They saw, like you said, they started bringing in all these other heroes, and I think it starts to combine all these heroes into what we would see more like in the Avengers, because in the Avengers you saw all of the heroes come together, but in like most of the other their single movies you would just see them. Maybe one of the other superheroes or a couple of them would make guest appearance, but then they wouldn't play a huge part. With this movie, like it wasn't really I didn't feel like it was about Captain America so much. It was about all of them as a team. It was about Iron Man, it was about Vision, it was about everybody, much more than it was a single entity. And that's what I really liked about it, is that they brought more in and they started bringing like the Marvel universe more together, and I think more towards the Avengers. And like you said, we got to see Ant-Man and what's the
Black Panther.
Black Panther. We got to see all of those start to come in and start to, I think, kind of show their place and take their place within the Avengers universe.
Well, it also set up really well for the future movies. But I do want to address real quick what you said about the solo movies. I can understand for somebody who's not a giant comic book nerd who just enjoys watching the movies in general. I can see how watching some of the solo movies might be a little boring, especially if you don't know a lot about the comics. I can
Right.
understand that because there's only been a few movies that have more than just one hero in it. Like we saw, if you, I know you said you didn't see Civil or not Civil War, Winter Soldier. It had Black Widow featured heavily in it. Like she was his pretty much his partner in the whole thing, and that's where we got introduced to the Winter Soldier. So I mean, we had a few different of those in there, but on the other ones, the only one I think we really saw that had more than just one focused hero is like Iron Man 2 and 3 both had War Machine and Iron Patriot, who he turned into, and then now he's back to War Machine again. So I mean, there's very very little in the movies that you see more than one hero. I think in the original Thor we got introduced to Hawkeye, so I can see how it would feel kind of maybe a little boring for somebody who doesn't is not like a huge comic book nerd like me, or maybe somebody who's just, I mean, there's 13 movies right now from Iron Man 1 up to Civil War. It's 13 films including both Avengers, so I mean that's a lot of movies to
That's a
watch.
lot of movies to watch.
So
Yeah.
for me, I'm a nerd. I'm like, as soon as Doctor Strange, which is the next one that's coming out, as soon as that one gets close to release, I'm gonna watch every single one of them from Iron Man 1 all the way up until Civil War, and then go see Doctor Strange, because there's always little hints in the movies, and there's the Easter eggs that you'll see. Because I know you didn't watch Winter Soldier, but in Winter Soldier, one of the things that one of the villains says is Stephen Strange, which is Doctor Strange's real name, and he mentions him by name about being one of the possible dangerous powered people, which kind of led up into the Civil War's Sokovia Accords, which you see in the trailer is one of the things that puts the Avengers against each other. So you kind of see that they just lead into these very intricately. There's some movies that they'll have stuff that's going to affect later movies that won't really matter for the next movie.
Right. They'll like it'll be in that movie and you really won't understand what it is, but it'll lead to something in a later movie, right?
Right, like
Or it'll just be a subtle hint as to something coming in a later movie.
yeah, see, one of the easiest ways to explain that is like Guardians of the Galaxy, a movie that takes place on a different planet in a different part of the galaxy that has nothing to do with the Avengers, but you don't even really understand how it fits into the Avenger universe until you hear them talk about the Infinity Stones, and then in Age of Ultron, which was right after it, they actually talk about them. That's when we get Vision being turned into a living being through one of those stones. That's how you start seeing this stuff is actually intertwined, and those stones are going to be really huge really soon with the next Avengers movies. I think that's going to be like the main focus, because we're about to get the villain that's been hinted about in the first Avengers movie, and we got him hinted in Guardians of the Galaxy, and so we're going to start seeing that stuff slowly come to fruition, which, if you don't know anything that's going on, their IGN put out a pretty decent video explaining what the big thing is. If you don't understand the Marvel Universe, you know, you can watch it. It's like a quick minute and 30 seconds kind of just explaining why these stones are important and what they're going to be leading to, without really spoiling too much, because I mean, if you ask any comic book nerd, they'll be like, oh yeah, Thanos and the Infinity Gauntlet, and everybody's
Right.
like, huh? You know,
Yeah,
for us, it's
because
not that
if
big of a deal.
I don't know that much, like I do know a little bit about the Marvel Universe, but isn't it that he takes the Infinity Stones and combines them into the Infinity Gauntlet, or they create the Infinity Gauntlet, and then in the comic he actually controls the entire universe? Is that
Yeah,
correct?
well, it's a little bit more intricate than that, but to break it down in layman's terms, each of the six stones controls an aspect of the universe: time, power, space, just different things, life itself, and that kind of stuff. Well, whenever you combine them into the Infinity Gauntlet, which was made specifically for the stones to harness all six powers together, whoever wields the gauntlet can become pretty much a god. Which in the Marvel Universe, there's no actual god. There's just really, really powerful beings, and he becomes on the level of them. And which I'm pretty sure there might be a god, and I'm probably going to get like people to listen to this and go, "No, you're a liar. There is a god." You know, they tried to write themselves in. The comic book creators wrote themselves in as the watchers or the seers or writers or whatever. It was kind of dumb, but I ignore that. But he becomes like so powerful that he kills off half the comic book world and destroys planets and everything until they finally beat him. So that's what this is leading to. That's why the next Avengers movie is going to be split in two, and they're back to back. One on, I think, 2019 or 2018, and the next one's the year after. So I mean, that's why it's so big. They split it in two, and I know a lot of people bitch about that, but I think that's perfectly, if they're
I
going to
think
that
yeah, I
big
think
of
that
a
if you can't
event.
Yeah, I think that if you can't fit an entire movie, like if you have this experience that you want, you have this story that you want to tell, and you can't fit that story into one movie, I think that it's better to go ahead and split it into two movies. People bitch about it because they don't want to go pay for two movies, or they don't want to spend the time for two movies. But for me, watching movies and loving film, I would want to have the full experience and the full story, and say, hey, I would rather pay for the two movies to get a better quality movie than to just say, oh, just shove it in one and then start cutting stuff out.
That's what she said. But no, I see why people get bitched about that, because I mean we've had a lot of movie franchises lately split books or movies into two so they can fit more in there, and a lot of people get
Jurassic
tired
Park.
of that. Uh,
No, that's a joke.
I was like, wait a minute, no, that was only one movie. No, I mean we've had it with like the Hunger Games, we had it with Lord of the Rings splitting the
Harry
Hobbit
Potter.
into three, and Harry Potter was well. See, Harry Potter I think was one of the few exceptions because, like you said, there was so much in that last
I think
book.
Harry Potter, yeah, I think the last one needed to be split because there was
It,
so much in that story that it needed two movies itself.
and honestly, if you watch the first movie, it was a little slow because that's the first of the book, and that last movie, the second part of this, the last movie, that thing was just action packed the whole way through because that was the last half of the book where all the action happens. So, but I think it's good if they do it for a reason and not just for a cash grab, which a lot of movie franchises seem like they're really grasping on straws for that. You know, what if we can get this movie being really popular so we can split the last movie in two and make more money?
Right.
So, but
Well,
this
just
doesn't seem like it's going to be like that though.
right, just a random thought because you mentioned the Hunger Games. The thing I know we're just talking about entertainment, so I'm going to bring it
Mhm.
up.
Sure.
The Hunger Games. So the Mockingjay Part One, I did not think was that good. Most people would probably agree they didn't think it was that good, but it led up to the second one. So I think in even that case, you could make a case that for two movies on that, it was okay. I mean, honestly, the Hunger Games, the Mockingjay Part One and Part Two, they were probably, not really that good compared to the other movies. I mean, they were still good, but I think the first one was leading up and it was slow and it was trying to tell the story. It was getting you ready and anticipated so that when the second one came out, you were hyped and you were like, oh, okay, so this is what's going to happen. This is what has happened. And then it all tied in together.
I guess. I mean, I've only seen part one so far. I haven't seen Mockingjay part two yet.
Okay,
I've
so
been
like the first one,
slacking
you
on
know
that.
how it's
It
slow
was
and
really slow, but I can
yeah.
imagine.
The second one is not like that. All the parts that they have, created in part one, they start to tell, why it's happening in part two. It's leading up to something that's happened in part two. So really, for them to do it that way, it worked out because you have that in part one, and then everything that happens in part one eventually, in some way, leads to something happening in part two.
No, that makes sense, and I'm actually gonna watch that soon. I've had so much other stuff going on that movies that I'm not dying to see, I'm not like putting up in my forefront. Marvel obviously is always. I've seen every single Marvel movie in theaters so far except the first Captain America, and that was because of the time it released was not a good time for me to be able to go see it. But I mean, that was the only one I've not seen in theaters. Even the Hulk movie, which is kind of like a half and half if it's really a part of the Marvel universe or not,
Yeah.
I even watched it in theaters. So I've seen everyone in theaters so far except the Captain America. So, and as soon as Doctor Strange launches, I'm going to be watching it too. But all in all, on our entertainment segment, if you haven't seen Captain America Civil War yet, whether you're a Marvel fan or not, and if you've seen any of the Marvel movies, there's not a lot that you're going to be missing if you haven't seen a lot of them. The only thing that you're going to kind of be lost on maybe is you'd probably recommend watching at least Captain America Winter Soldier first. So I'm sure since you didn't watch Winter Soldier, you were a
But
little.
even then, I didn't watch it, and I still they explained what happens, and they explain what the Winter Soldier is.
Okay, so you weren't confused at all of who Bucky was or any of that, and what the
No,
okay, because that's the only thing that I could see.
they explain all of that eventually within the movie somewhere.
I miss it because I already know what's going on. So whenever they do explanations, my mind just kind of goes off because I don't need to. It's not information I need. I'm trying to piece the movie together on the other stuff, because I guessed the ending of the movie pretty quickly on, at least the really big reveal, which I'm not gonna say anything about it, but I guessed that pretty early on, just from there was two things that happened, one in the middle of the movie and one towards the beginning of the movie that I'm like, oh, okay, hold on, that has to be important. And then they mentioned something and I'm like, yeah, okay, now I understand.
Yep.
And it ended up happening. I'm like, yes, I am smart. I guessed Marvel's plan in this movie. But anyway, so that's our entertainment segment. Go watch Marvel Captain America Civil War. Great movie, great
Yeah, I thought it was a
action,
good movie.
hilarious, and not overly hilarious like Thor 1 was. Like this one was just the perfect amount of humor with the action, and they did it really well. So let's move on to our second topic, the reveal of. We talked about last time, Infinite Warfare, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, how they revealed the trailer, and we talked about the boots on the ground, hopefully, and everything. But what we really want to talk about is this right now is up to like number 5 or number 7 on YouTube's most hated videos list right now
It
on the
is the
most
most
dislikes.
disliked video that is not a music video in all of YouTube's history.
So yeah, so overall it's like between 5 and 7, but I mean that's ridiculous. In a trailer that was launched within like I think it was 1 day of it launching, it was already in the top 10. So I mean, people are obviously either one upset about this or there's a lot of trolls out there.
Or there's a lot of bandwagoning.
Well, yeah.
Here's my opinion on it. So I liked the trailer because I saw at the very end, Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered. And I think part of it is that we talked about last time, and I made a whole video about this, is that I think a lot of people that are playing Call of Duty now would have never actually played Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Either they just weren't into Call of Duty then, or
they were too young.
Yeah, something like that. Because it was 10 years ago, let's face it.
I
mean,
yeah.
People who are 13, 14, 15, 16 start playing these games. Your mom wasn't letting you play Call of Duty Modern Warfare at 6 years old.
Well, she shouldn't have.
Well, she shouldn't have. So a lot of those people probably haven't played Call of Duty Modern Warfare. I have. I thought it was a fantastic game. I loved it when it came out. It was a fantastic game. So I think either it's that people are just so mad about there still being in the future, being the space jumping and the exo jumping, and they said it's a chain-based movement system, which is more like Black Ops 3. It's not like Advanced Warfare, but I think there's so many people that are still upset, and they've tried to convey to the developers of Call of Duty that, hey, we don't want chain-based movement. We want boots on the ground. We want that back. We want regular combat. So I think part of it's that. Part of it's that people are like, oh, people are disliking, so let's see how high we can get this up in the YouTube hated list. Part of it is that there's trolls out there. Part of it is that people are just bandwagoning. They're like, oh, everybody else is disliking it. I don't want to be that one guy that likes it. Well, you won't be. You'll be joining, 250,000 other people who are liking the video. And honestly, I think that's part of it. But still, I think that there's a message to be heard here from Activision and Infinity Ward to say, and Treyarch and all the other developers of the Call of Duties, is that people, I think as a community, the general consensus is that we do not want boots on the ground. I'm sorry, we do not want space jumping. We want boots on ground. It'll be interesting to see when it comes out whether people play Infinite Warfare or whether they play Modern Warfare Remastered more. It's going to be an interesting thing to watch, which one gets played more.
Well, I think the one thing you didn't mention, and if you did, I might have missed it. Did you mention that one of the reasons it could be getting hate is the simple fact that Activision and I think it's Infinity Ward, right?
It's Infinity Ward.
I get them and Treyarch mixed up a lot. They both came out and announced that you cannot play Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare Remaster without purchasing and owning the Infinite Warfare.
No, I did not mention that, but I think that is something that is also, well, I missed that part. I think that's another reason that it's getting hate is because people want it by itself. And
well, not just that, it's also the fact that they're forcing you to buy their new game to play their old game. And I think that's kind of a bullshit because on the Reddit threads that I've read, the people talking about it, that's the biggest consensus aside from the fact of what you said about it being Advanced Warfare, Black Ops 3, Space Jump, Boost Jump stuff. But right now, everybody's like really came out and said, well, look at Halo. Halo's was at one time Call of Duty's biggest rival. With Halo 3 and Halo Reach was right up, like Call of Duty and Halo went head to head.
Right.
So when Halo came out with, the original Halo Combat Evolved Remastered, then they came out with the Master Chief Collection. Both of those were sold completely separately. One was sold at like $30 or $40. And then the Master Chief Collection was sold at $60, but it came with the original Halo, Halo 2, both of them, both remastered completely, and then Halo 3, which was just an HD update. It wasn't remastered or anything. They just put it in HD. And then it also came with, I believe it had like an ODST DLC that came free with it if you owned it. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's 4 games.
I thought it also came with Reach and Halo 4, did it not?
I don't know. I don't think it came with Reach. There was one game that it was missing, and I think it is either 4 or Reach, and I can't remember. I don't own an Xbox One, so I'm just going off secondhand information. but I do know it was missing one game, which I think it might have been four. I don't know. It was one of the
Okay.
two. But I mean, 4 or 5 games completely with two 100% remasters, and it was $60 able to be purchased separately. None of the games were ever said, okay, you have to buy this game to get this game. None of that was going on at all. So I think that's one of the other big things that people are really pissed off about. If you can have, Halo being one of the other number one shooters out right now, though it's console exclusive, it really shows that if one developer can come out with this, why is Call of Duty so upset? Or no, I'm sorry, why are people so upset that Call of Duty is putting out, their game, forcing you to buy their new game, and not only forcing you to buy it, but also forcing you to pay $20 more. So you don't just go out and buy Infinite Warfare. You got to pay 80 or more for one of their other editions to get the remaster. And I think that's a really key thing of why people are hating on it. And I can understand it. I agree. I told you whenever we first talked about this off podcast that I'm not buying Infinite Warfare. They've upset me enough. Unless I see multiplayer trailers that actually show boots on the ground without all this boost jump, or if they do the boost jump right, like I said, with maybe doing kind of like a not a kill streak thing, but kind of like they've got in Black Ops right now, where you have like a special
stability.
right. So if you can do that every now and then, I'm okay with that. I think that would be okay to have that every now and then, not wall jumping and running and boost jumping and hovering and all this shit constantly, because that's not the Call of Duty that I like. It's not what I want. But if they do it like that, then I'm okay with it. But until I see that trailer, until I see that actually being what I'm wanting, I'm not buying Infinite Warfare. And that upsets me because I'm not going to be able to get, if they continue with this, I'm not going to be able to get Call of Duty 4 Remaster because I'm not buying Infinite Warfare. I won't do it.
Right. So they're pretty much confirmed because the Activision CEO said in the earnings call that we are just to their shareholders, Activision shareholders. He said that we're trying to give people both options. We're trying to give that boost jumping space futuristic game to one part of the community, and we're trying to give boots on the ground to the other part of the community. But the thing is, like, that's a brand new game. That's an entire new experience. Infinite Warfare, Modern Warfare Remastered. Modern Warfare was a great game, but I don't want to have to rely on, I'm just going to get an old game every single year, and that's going to be my experience. So while everybody else is still getting, the new stuff. Majority of the community, I think, has this consensus that we don't want the space jumping, we want boots on the ground, but yet they continue to try to appeal to that smaller section of the community, and the larger part of the community is getting mad. So I think that's partly where I think majority of actually that's where the dislikes are coming from on that video. My whole take on it is that it is kind of crappy that we see that you have to buy Infinite Warfare to get Modern Warfare Remastered. I think eventually they will end up selling Modern Warfare Remastered as a separate standalone download, because when Black Ops 3 first came out, Treyarch said that they would never have weapons in the supply drops, and then Big Daddy Activision said, oh no, we're going to put those in there because we made a ton of money from Advanced Warfare. So I think in time you will eventually see the Modern Warfare Remaster come back. But like I said, at the same time, you don't want to have to rely on an old game being remastered every single year to get your boots on the ground experience while they're still doing the space jumping. Because they're really the only other two Call of Duties that I would ever want to see remastered besides Modern Warfare would have to be World at War and Black Ops, the original Black Ops. Not Modern Warfare 2, that was a great game, but it would just be noob tube, intervention, one-man army all over again. And sure, it was okay and fun at the time, but I wouldn't want to go back and replay that now. So it's frustrating because you don't want to have to, you just rely on the same game remastered over and over again every year.
Well, I think my take on it is that they don't want to release it right off the bat for a money standpoint. Think about it. If you're going to put out one of the highest selling Call of Duty games of all time and one of the highest rated Call of Duties of all time, the best way to get pre-orders on a game that people might not want to buy is just tag it into it. Yep. So they're going to hit that pre-order market right off the bat, which if you're listening to this, don't pre-order games. I'm a hypocrite on that because there's only a few games I'll ever pre-order, and the only reason I do is because I play the beta first. There's never been a game that I've pre-ordered that I have not played the beta first, or that's not an expansion of a game that I'm currently playing. So if you don't have a game and you've never not played it, or you've not played the beta, or you don't have any experience with it, don't pre-order it. It's stupid. That's a company's money grab at you. People have been bit in the ass by that. Just go ask the people that pre-ordered Aliens Colonial Marines, they'll tell you.
Okay, so I don't actually mind pre-ordering games, and I started listening to you more and more to not pre-order, and I started playing betas and other games. I was like, well, I bought this game and I really don't like it, so I quit pre-ordering games. And then Amazon Prime, this is the only reason I still continue to pre-order games. Amazon Prime now does the thing where you can pre-order a game and they will give you 20% off that game. So I pre-ordered Call of Duty Infinite Warfare because you already knew I was going to get it. I already
Right.
stated I was getting it because I want to play Modern Warfare, and I'll just suck it up and I'll just pay the extra $20. So I actually got it at $63 because the Amazon Prime membership gave me the benefit of $20, 20% off. So I'm basically paying $3 more for that extra content.
Well, see, I also get that with Best Buy because I have the Gamers Club unlocked, which you can buy for I think 2 or 3 years for like thirty
Right.
dollars or something like that, and you get 20% off of a pre-order. Plus, they give you a $10 rewards card to use after the game you bought the game fully or whenever it comes out or whatever. So they're pretty much you get 20% off plus a free $10 to spend on another game later. Uh, so I can tell you that I'm going to pre-order Overwatch. I haven't yet, and I've been holding off because I wanted to play the beta thoroughly because I played the first beta that came through for me a few weeks ago, and I was only able to play it for like 3 hours, and I still wasn't convinced that I wanted to pre-order the game.
The closed beta.
Right, yeah, because I played it on the PC. They didn't have it on PS4 yet. But then when the PS4 one came out, because I want to get it on PS4 simply because I have a wide variety of friends that have been playing it with me on the beta, and that's the people who are going to end up buying this game. I know at least 3 or 4 of them will. So that's where my friend base is going to be. And plus, my PC right now can't handle it. My new one I'm getting soon will, but right now my PS4 is my best
So that
gaming option.
YouTube money.
Soon, yeah, my 85 cents I got last month. That's how much I made last month. Thank you, 23 subscribers. Thank you. No,
No, but on a serious topic or
no,
serious note.
yeah. I mean, pre-orders are still kind of hesitant with me. My only pre-order I'm getting is Overwatch, and it's only because I've put in about 20 or so hours, if not more, on the beta, and I'll be putting more in tonight and tomorrow before it. Or actually tonight I think is the last night. So I'll be putting more in tonight before. And I know I want this game because I've been playing it for 20 hours and I still want to play it. If I want to continue to play the game, then I know I'm going to buy it. So
Right. So what do you think about, just to like start to, you know, transition the podcast into the Battlefield? What did you think about the Battlefield 1, and then we can compare the Call of Duty versus Battlefield. I know that you don't particularly like EA. They're not your, they're actually probably your most disliked publisher, but what did you think of the Battlefield 1 trailer?
okay,
Did you feel that DICE did it right, or do you feel that they didn't?
on terms of a gameplay or a gaming trailer that's just cinematic, I thought it was awesome. I mean, take EA out of the picture, take DICE out of the picture, any of my past hate for them. The trailer was fantastic. The music was awesome.
Honestly, it's probably one of the best. Sorry, I didn't interrupt you. It's
No,
one
no,
of the
you're fine.
best cinematic gameplay trailers that I've ever seen.
It was phenomenal. I mean, everything they did about it was good. I mean, I watched a guy on YouTube, Flack. I can't remember his full name, his full title on YouTube, but he did a complete analysis of all the historical stuff in the video, and they did really close to what's like actually happened in World War One. And there's only like 2 games out that people have said.
Oh, I watched the same video. Are you talking about Jack Frags?
It might have been. I don't remember. Reddit, boosted him up to like
Is
100
his
some thousand
is his
subscribers.
thing like a black and white logo?
No, I don't think that's the same because this guy has like an orange logo. His name's Flack something.
Oh, okay. Well, Jack Frags, who does like commentary over Call of
I've
Duty,
seen him before.
he also did the same thing where he compared it to historical,
Yeah.
and he was like, "Oh, this is actually, they're getting pretty historically accurate to." I mean, they have freaking horses in it, for God's sakes. That's
Well,
got to be.
Horses. The guy who actually was talking about the one video I watched actually talked about the chick who was on the horseback with the tattoos. Actually talked about what tribe she could have been from. I mean, this guy went really in depth. But the thing is if they paid that much attention to details in it, I'm already impressed. And I hate EA, but if the gameplay comes out and it's anywhere near what I saw on that trailer, I'm probably getting it. And I will stuff my hate for EA down. Because if that game launches good, I won't pre-order it. I already said that. But I will buy it if it's that good. Because it looked phenomenal. We only have like 2 games out right now that are World War One. And there's only one that people were recommending. So we're actually going to finally get a true World War One shooter, and it looks. I mean, the one thing different about Battlefield than Call of Duty is you've got Call of Duty as a fast-paced kind of arena type, really small quarters. At least recent Call of Duties have been like this,
Right.
really close quarters, indoor, slightly outdoor type stuff. While Battlefield are these huge maps where you have airplanes and vehicles and ships and shit. That's what excites me about it, and that's why I miss Battlefield, because I loved Battlefield 3 but hated Battlefield 4. So I'm really wanting to get back into Battlefield, but I refuse to buy 4 just for the fact of how they did everything. I'm sticking to my principles on that. But if they actually go through and do what they did on Battlefield, what they did on that trailer, and it is actually a good game and it releases without all the shit that they had on Battlefield 4, I will be first in line to buy it, because that trailer has me so hyped that I've already watched it 2 or 3 times. They did a
Yeah, so like
phenomenal job
they
on
did a
that.
phenomenal job on it. Yeah. So Battlefield, I love the Battlefield franchise. And honestly, in my opinion, I think the Battlefield franchise is a better franchise than the Call of Duty franchise. Battlefield's more realistic. The gameplay is more even. Just
You don't
it's
get
just
snipe spawned.
right. It's just, in my opinion, it's just a better, more rounded series than Call of Duty. It's more competitive in Battlefield. You don't have these people that are,
Quick scopers.
5 and 50, and then on the other team you have someone who's 69-1, and yeah. So I think that they did the trailer right. The cinematics were fantastic. From the videos that I've watched, historically accurate. They're pretty darn close. I'm not buying the collector's edition because I think it's like $225.
Wow.
I mean the statue is cool, but I remember when we were buying collector's edition statues for $150, and now they're all of a sudden, inflation has gone up so much that some of them are $250, $225, and I'm like, I'm not paying $225 for a collector's edition of a game, because you can go out 6 months later on eBay and find that statue for $30. I did the same thing with the God of War. I wasn't paying, I think it was $150 for the God of War collector's edition statue, and then I end up finding it for $30 on eBay just months later, and I bought the game for the 60, and then for $30 more I got the statue that I wanted, and I saved $60. So I'm not going to shove all that money into the collector's edition. But I digress. Sorry. What I was getting at was, I think Battlefield, if they do it right, if they do what historically accurate, I think the campaign will be fantastic. I think the multiplayer will be fantastic, and I'm just hoping for a kick-ass game. And this may actually be the year that Battlefield outdoes Call of Duty, because if you look at the trailer, there's more love. There's almost as much love on the Battlefield trailer as there is hate on the Call of Duty trailer.
But take into account that is still a small number of people compared to the actual people who will buy the game. I mean, that's why anytime you see the hate on EA, their games still sell outrageous. Anytime you see the hate on Call of Duty, they're still the #1 seller. Right. So, I mean, that is only a small number. You got to take that in account, everything with a grain of salt, because for every 5 people who dislike a game, there's 100 people out there that are going to buy it. I mean,
right.
It's just,
plus there's a lot of people who watch YouTube videos who never like or dislike. They just watch it and then they move on. Yeah,
I'm guilty of that. I forget to like and dislike a lot. I don't ever really dislike.
Yeah, I do. Now that I've become more of a YouTuber and I do more and more YouTube videos, I'm like, I almost never dislike a video unless like there's really something in there.
Right.
But I always try to like a video if I do like it.
If I'm subscribed, I'm definitely liking their video if I enjoy the content.
I wonder, though, we can end on this note. I wonder that if Infinite Warfare didn't have Modern Warfare with it, so they didn't, let's say they weren't remastering Modern Warfare this year, so it was just Infinite Warfare standalone, do you think that Battlefield 1 would outsell Infinite Warfare?
If it didn't outsell it, I think it would come very close to either matching it or right below it, just simply because we've seen even Advanced Warfare, which was a horrible game, okay campaign, but a horrible multiplayer, still was the #1 seller when it came out. So, I mean, Call of Duty is going to sell no matter what. It's got the logo Call of Duty on it. It's going to make sales. But with the fiasco that's come out with this, if they didn't have Modern Warfare, I'd say it'd be a very close tie. I still don't see Battlefield outselling Call of Duty anytime soon, just because of how Call of Duty is and the fanboys that it has. And Battlefield is very accessible for only a smaller number of players than Call of Duty, because Call of Duty, a 12-year-old kid can pick it up and play, while Battlefield, it's going to be a little harder for them
It
because
takes more skill to play Battlefield.
right, it's bigger maps, bigger stuff, and you have to be able like to fly a jet. You can't just jump in a jet and fly. I mean, there's a lot of different stuff in
Oh
Battlefield.
my gosh, the first time I tried to fly a jet in Battlefield, I just went whoop straight into the ground, boom, and exploded.
I kamikazed my own team by accident. So yeah, it's a little bit different of a niche there, but I do think that this year that Battlefield comes out will be probably the best-selling Battlefield of all time, just because everybody's tired of the modern, they're tired of the futuristic. We want to kind of go back into the days where wars were epic and huge, which World War I and II were. We haven't had an actual war since then, aside from like the Middle East, and no one wants to play that.
Right, we haven't had a great, massive, huge war that involved the entire world.
Right, we haven't had another world war yet, and if we do that, it's going to be we're dead. So we won't get a game for that. They'll just be talking about it on cave paintings. But no, I mean, in actuality, we haven't had a really good war game in a while that hasn't been either futuristic or that hasn't been something to do with the Middle East. And those are two things people are they're overdone, especially in the last 10 years. We're tired of it. We just want to enjoy the game for what it is. And what it is we want is old school stuff. Boots on the ground, guns that we know that were reliable. We don't want this futuristic laser gun. We want a gun that shoots bullets.
Right. And I think even laser guns have their place, like Star Wars. That was okay in that universe, but I don't want that in Call of Duty, or even Destiny. Destiny has, the futuristic, different type of weapons, but that's in that universe, and that's where they started. That's where it works. It doesn't work in Call of Duty, in my opinion. So
if you actually look at
I think they're trying to compete with those games, and by doing that, they're like, oh, let's just kind of do a little bit more futuristic, and then people are like, no.
They kind of did compete with it. They put out Battlefront, which is just Battlefield Star Wars. So I mean, they did have their futuristic. It was just set in a known universe, I think.
Right. Yeah, but it was that's what I was saying. It's set in a known universe, and it would be awkward to have Star Wars with Tommy gun. You'd be like,
right.
There's no Tommy gun in the Star Wars universe.
No, yeah.
So the laser guns work there.
We got our futuristic Battlefield. It just happened to be in a known universe. So we have seen that. We just don't want it again. I mean, if we do get another Battlefront, that's fine, because that's what that game is for. But we don't want a futuristic Battlefield. We don't want another futuristic Call of Duty. That's why everybody's so excited about the remaster. Give us something to kind of go back into our roots of shooters, because shooters got big and got huge on Counter-Strike, on the original Battlefields, and in the original Call of Duties. Well, I mean, no, I'm not talking about the futuristic shooters. I mean, the original shooters that got big. Because Halo was the console. I mean, on computer, we had like Battlefield 1942, and Bad Company, and all this stuff that got really big on the computer. And Counter-Strike was probably the biggest at the time, because it was so easy to mod, and they could do a bunch of stuff with it. But
that was our roots. You had the original Call of Duties, and those started to get big. I agree.
I remember Call of Duty 3 was still one of my favorite games, and I think that was World War II.
That was World War II, correct.
Yep. So I want to go back to that. I want to go back to the old school, because we've had so much modern and futuristic. I mean, shit, we're playing Destiny all the time. That's a futuristic shooter. You're playing Battlefront and Overwatch, which is cartoony, but it's still in that type of, futuristic robots and lasers and stuff. Let us go back to a little bit simpler of a time. I want to feel that again. I want to be, for me, 10 years ago, I was 18 years old, or I was 18 10 years ago. Or no, I'd have been 17. But back in like 2007, when Modern Warfare came out, I was 18 years old. I just graduated high school. I had just got my first Xbox 360, and we were playing Call of Duty 3. And we were playing that old bolt-action rifle and stuff. And I miss that. I want to go back to those days when I felt like this was all fresh and new. And I want to see if I can maybe recapture that a little bit. And
so what you're saying is you want Call of Duty World at War remastered.
I didn't like World at War. I liked 3 better than World at War, but for me, I just want to see if I can recapture that. But no, I see what you mean. That's pretty much exactly what Call of Duty was. But no, I felt Call of Duty 3 was better than World at War. Even though World at War had better graphics and stuff, I just felt that Call of Duty 3 had a more, realistic feel to it than World at War did.
Right. So I think we've pretty much covered everything.
Yeah, well, that's another edition of our weekly Small Town Gamers podcast. Next week, we'll talk about something different.
That's right. Tune in next week and you'll get more rambling and more awesomeness.
And more of us. Yay!
That's right. Yay!
Thanks, gamers. We'll talk to you next time.
Peace.